Welcome to our special investigative feature. Today, we dive into a shocking case where truth and lies intertwine, leading to unimaginable consequences. A seemingly perfect relationship has crumbled under the weight of greed and betrayal. This case has not only stunned the community but also exposed the darkest corners of the human soul. What really happened? And how did a love story turn into such a devastating tragedy? Join us as we dig into every detail, every piece of evidence, to uncover the answers. In this story, we'll learn about Emily, a smart and talented woman who once enjoyed a peaceful life with her husband, Lucas, a successful businessman. They were once seen as the perfect couple by everyone, but behind the flawless exterior lay cracks no one expected. At the center of it all is Amelia, Emily's mother, who played a unique role in both of their lives, and it's from here that horrifying secrets began to surface. A once strong relationship was twisted by betrayal and greed, leading to irreversible consequences. Now, let's explore the dramatic and unexpected twists of this story, and uncover the truth behind this tragic downfall. The love story between Emily and Lucas Blackwell began like a real-life fairy tale. They first met at the University of California, Berkeley, when fate led them to a serendipitous encounter. Emily, an art student with a gentle and creative spirit, captivated Lucas from the moment he first saw her sketching by the lake on campus. Lucas, with his ideal height and charming smile, not only won Emily's heart but quickly became the center of the future she envisioned. After graduation, they swiftly married in what seemed like a dream wedding. Lucas, thanks to his business acumen and family connections, quickly climbed the ladder of success. Meanwhile, Emily found her passion teaching art at a high school, where she inspired many young minds. Their home in the upscale Bel Air neighborhood of Los Angeles became a symbol of their success, with every corner reflecting Emily's exquisite artistic touch. The couple soon became prominent figures in their community, frequently attending charity events, galas, and engaging in social activities. To everyone, they appeared to be the perfect couple, two puzzle pieces fitting seamlessly into a flawless picture. Yet, like a beautiful painting that begins to fade, cracks started to form beneath their seemingly perfect facade. Though they still loved each other, their unfulfilled desire to have a child created an invisible strain between them. They endured cycle after cycle of fertility treatments, each bringing hope followed by crushing disappointment. Lucas buried himself in work, while Emily sought solace in her art and the love of her mother, Amelia. Everything seemed to be holding together, but the illusion of peace was about to be shattered by the flames of betrayal. What happened next not only broke their once happy life but also plunged them into an irreversible tragedy. Things took a darker turn as Lucas began showing subtle but noticeable changes. He grew more distant, sharing less about his work and life with Emily. His business trips became more frequent, and when he returned, there was a lost, emotionless look in his eyes. This only deepened Emily's anxiety and suspicion. One evening, when Lucas came home later than usual, Emily could no longer suppress her unease. She decided to check his phone, and what she found confirmed her worst fears. Vague, cryptic messages from an unfamiliar number appeared on the screen, hinting at something Emily dreaded. But the sender wasn't a mysterious woman, it was someone she trusted most, her mother, Amelia. Emily couldn't stop thinking about the cryptic messages she had discovered. Each night, images of Lucas and her mother, Amelia, slowly turned into an obsession in her mind. Unanswered questions began to invade her thoughts. She wondered if her mother's affection for her was ever genuine or if the love Lucas had vowed to her still existed. Every moment spent with Lucas became a psychological battle, as his smiles and glances now seemed like mere veils hiding a dark secret. Lucas grew more distant with each passing day. The meetings and business trips he frequently mentioned now became constant reasons for him to leave home. Emily could sense the emptiness in his eyes whenever they faced each other, and her heart slowly sank into the pit of doubt. Amelia, who had once been Emily's emotional support, was no longer the mother she used to know. Conversations with her had become cold and awkward. Amelia often avoided Emily's gaze, and their once frequent visits became sparse. One afternoon, Lucas mentioned he'd be going on a business trip for a few days. Emily's heart clenched as she saw the hurried look in his eyes when he said goodbye. But this time, Emily decided she wouldn't sit idly by. Quietly, she followed Lucas from a distance, and as he left the house, she secretly tailed him in her car. A terrible feeling loomed inside her, but Emily couldn't stop. She needed to know the truth, no matter how cruel it might be. Lucas drove straight to Amelia's house. Emily's heart felt like it would explode when she saw his car parked outside her mother's home. Everything she had feared was now unfolding right before her eyes. Emily hid behind the bushes by the road, unable to take her eyes off the scene in front of her. Lucas stepped out of the car, and it didn't take long before the door opened. Amelia, dressed in a thin dress, greeted him with a gentle yet suggestive smile. Lucas said nothing, only gazing at Emily's mother with a look she had never seen before. They entered the house together, and the door slammed shut. Emily felt like time had stopped. Each breath became heavier, and her eyes blurred with tears. Everything she had once believed in, everything she had loved, was now crumbling before her. The husband she had trusted with her heart and the mother she had always loved and respected were both plunging a dagger deep into her soul with their betrayal. Emily crept closer, hiding near the living room window. Through the glass, she witnessed a scene that almost made her collapse. Amelia and Lucas sat side by side on the sofa, closer and more intimate than they had ever been. They whispered to each other, their glances no longer those of family members. Lucas reached out, gently taking Amelia's hand, stroking her skin in an embrace filled with guilt. Emily stepped back, her legs trembling, but the fury and despair kept her from falling. She wanted to rush in, confront them, and force them to confess their sins, but she knew this wasn't the right moment. The brutal truth was out in the open, but she needed to confront it smartly. She couldn't lose control now. She returned to her car, her heart shattered but her mind already calculating. The betrayal had unfolded before her eyes, and now, a plan to seek revenge and resolve the situation began to take shape. Emily was no longer the weak woman she once was. The chaotic emotions inside her were transforming into ruthless determination. Lucas and Amelia would pay for what they had done, but Emily wouldn't rush. She would plan, step by step, and exact her revenge in a way they would never see coming. Lucas and Amelia's betrayal was no longer just vague suspicions in Emily's mind. She was now certain of their illicit relationship, but she couldn't confront it immediately. Emily returned home with a heavy heart, her mind swirling with complex thoughts. She couldn't just break everything apart, that would be too easy for both Lucas and Amelia. They needed to face the consequences of what they had done. In the days that followed, Lucas became increasingly distant. She noticed he was no longer enthusiastic when talking about work or their future plans. His eyes often avoided hers, and whenever Emily tried to engage him, Lucas responded with short, cold answers. Despite his attempts to hide it, Emily sensed the gradual change. The suspicion didn't just stem from Lucas but also from her mother, Amelia. Her mother now frequently found excuses to avoid seeing Emily. The familiar afternoon tea sessions between mother and daughter were now just memories. When Emily visited, Amelia hurried through their conversations, her gaze always dodging, unable to meet her daughter's eyes. One day, Emily decided to call her mother unexpectedly while Lucas claimed to be busy at the office. Her heart nearly stopped when she heard Lucas's voice answer the phone at her mother's house. Amelia, clearly flustered, quickly found an excuse to end the call, but by then, Emily had no more doubts. The bitter truth had become all too clear. Emily began to observe more closely. She noticed that Lucas frequently came home late without a clear reason, and the secretive phone calls became more frequent. She felt like she was being pushed further out of his life, as though she was no longer the woman he once loved. But the most painful part was the deception coming from her own mother. Emily tried to maintain a sense of normalcy, but everything around her now felt like a charade. She carefully documented every strange detail she noticed, from hotel and restaurant receipts where they had never been together, to suspicious expenses in their bank accounts. She knew she needed concrete proof to confront the truth. Even as the truth became clearer, Emily couldn't stop the pain she felt each night as she looked at Lucas's face. Every time he entered the bedroom with that fake smile, she felt a suffocating pressure in her chest, stifling her emotions. Lucas might be a betrayer, but there had been a time when he was the person she loved most. The sense of loss and betrayal intertwined, making her heart ache every time she saw him. The more Emily searched for answers, the clearer everything became. The signs of betrayal were everywhere, from Lucas's lips to his clumsy lies. She felt like an outsider in her own life, watching as her husband and her mother, once her sources of comfort, betrayed her right before her eyes. The false calm she had managed to maintain would soon no longer hold. One night, Lucas came home later than usual, his eyes shimmering with exhaustion and tension. Emily didn't ask any questions, she simply observed him as he entered the room. She was no longer looking for explanations, she already knew the truth. What she waited for now was the right moment to tear everything apart, to get revenge for what Lucas and Amelia had done to her. Emily's suspicions were no longer just vague feelings but pieces of a completed puzzle of betrayal. Everything seemed ready for the confrontation, but Emily knew that to get her revenge, she needed to plan carefully. She couldn't let her emotions ruin everything, and she couldn't act too quickly. Anguish tormented Emily, making it impossible for her to stay still. She decided to uncover the truth and not let her emotions cloud her judgment. However, she knew that to expose the treacherous relationship between Lucas and her mother, Amelia, she needed to prepare carefully. Instead of rushing into confrontation, Emily began a silent investigation to gather concrete evidence. In the weeks that followed, she started monitoring Lucas's activities more closely. She discreetly checked his phone whenever she had the chance, noting cryptic messages and calls from numbers not saved in his contacts. The business partner calls were no longer a mystery, as she realized Lucas was actually talking to her mother. Emily also scrutinized his credit card statements, discovering unusual expenses, lavish dinners and hotel bookings at places the couple had never visited together. Bit by bit, the evidence of betrayal started to become clear. Lucas was no longer being discreet, perhaps he had grown too confident that Emily wouldn't find out the truth. Each time Lucas lied, Emily remained silent, but inside, a plan for revenge began to form. Emily also started observing her mother. Amelia, who had always been her emotional support, now felt distant and unfamiliar. Their meetings became rare and awkward. Amelia often avoided Emily's gaze, and when Emily tried to stay longer, her mother would find excuses to leave. This only deepened Emily's suspicion and pain. One day, after Lucas left the house claiming he had work to do, Emily decided to follow him directly. She knew he was going to Amelia's house, but this time, she wanted to witness it for herself, not rely on feelings or assumptions. She trailed Lucas at a safe distance, careful not to be noticed. As they approached her mother's house, Emily's heart tightened, but she stayed calm, despite the fury brewing inside her. From her car, she watched Lucas walk into Amelia's house casually, as if it were his own. Not long after, Emily moved closer, quietly observing through the living room window. Inside, Lucas and Amelia sat side by side on the couch, chatting intimately and laughing, not like family, but like lovers. They shared gentle touches, the kind only those deeply involved would understand. Emily stood frozen, trying to maintain her composure as she witnessed the scene she had dreaded. It wasn't a mere suspicion anymore, but a harsh reality unfolding before her eyes. But instead of letting her anger consume her, Emily quietly left and drove home, where she began preparing for her revenge. In the following days, Emily started meeting with lawyers and hired a private investigator. She wanted undeniable evidence of the affair. Every move Lucas and Amelia made was carefully monitored and recorded. The picture of betrayal had never been clearer. Meanwhile, Lucas remained oblivious to the fact that Emily had uncovered everything. He continued living his double life, being the loving husband in the eyes of their neighbors while secretly living as a cheater. But Lucas had no idea that Emily was ready for the biggest confrontation of their lives, and this time, she would be the one in control. Emily was no longer the weak wife. She was a decisive woman, meticulously building a plan for intelligent and ruthless revenge. Her pain had slowly turned into iron-willed determination. She knew that when everything came crashing down, both Lucas and Amelia would have to face the consequences. Emily wasn't just looking for a confrontation, she wanted them to feel the pain she had endured. After weeks of quietly preparing, Emily decided the time had come to reveal the truth. She could no longer endure the lies and betrayals from the two people she had loved most, her husband and her mother. With undeniable evidence in hand, Emily planned for the inevitable confrontation. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon when Lucas announced he was going golfing with a colleague. Emily simply nodded and smiled, trying to hide the storm brewing inside her. As soon as Lucas left the house, Emily made up her mind to face the truth, no matter how brutal it might be. She drove straight to Amelia's house, where she knew Lucas would be, but this time, she wasn't going to watch from a distance. Her heart raced as she pulled up to the narrow driveway leading to her mother's familiar home. Lucas's car was parked neatly in front, confirming the betrayal Emily had suspected for so long. She stopped the car, trying to calm her breathing, and walked to the front door. The key she always carried in her purse was still there, but now it no longer symbolized family love, it was the gateway to painful truth. Emily turned the key, opened the door, and the scene before her shattered everything inside. On the couch in the middle of the living room, Lucas and Amelia were embracing in a way that needed no explanation. Both of them froze in shock as Emily walked in, their eyes filled with confusion and fear. Lucas quickly stood up, stammering incoherent excuses. "Emily, it's not what you think," he said, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. Amelia, the woman Emily had once admired and loved, could only sit there, tears welling up in her eyes but unable to mask the guilt of her actions. Emily stood there, staring at the two people she had trusted more than anyone in her life. The emotions inside her were no longer of rage but of a terrifying silence, the kind that comes when the pain is too deep for words. She looked at Lucas, then at Amelia, and in that moment, she knew nothing could ever restore what had been lost. "Not what I think." Emily repeated Lucas's words, her voice cold and hollow. "Really? Then what am I supposed to think about what I just saw?" Lucas tried to approach her, but Emily stepped back, her gaze piercing him with contempt. "It's all been lies, hasn't it? You and my mother, how long have you both been lying to me?" Amelia said nothing, only cried. But her tears no longer softened Emily's heart. The betrayal was too great, and those tears were now only a confession of guilt. Lucas began begging for forgiveness, but every word he spoke only made Emily more resolute. She didn't want to hear any meaningless apologies. She didn't need any more excuses. She had been ready for this moment, and now, it was time to end it all. "You don't need to apologize," Emily said, her voice calm but sharp as a knife. "Because I already know everything. I've known for a long time, and now, there's only one thing I want from you: get out of my life." Lucas stood there, his eyes full of helplessness and regret. But Emily no longer waited for change. She turned to Amelia, who now was just a shadow of the mother she once cherished. "And you," Emily said, "you've destroyed everything. Not just my love, but our family. From now on, we're no longer mother and daughter." Amelia choked back sobs, trying to say something, but no words were strong enough to make up for what she had done. Emily looked at her one last time before turning her back and walking out of the house that had once been full of love and happiness. She didn't cry anymore. She wasn't angry. All that was left was emptiness. Every step she took echoed on the road home, where she would start her new life, a life without Lucas, without Amelia, and without lies. After leaving her mother's house, Emily felt an overwhelming emptiness fill her soul. Everything she once knew and loved was now a distant memory. But instead of letting the pain consume her, she began to realize that this loss was also the beginning of a new chapter, one where she would no longer be a victim. She had endured enough, and now it was time for Lucas and Amelia to pay for their betrayal. In the weeks that followed, Emily was no longer the weak and directionless woman she once was. She began to craft her revenge, not through rash and emotional outbursts, but with a plan that was both sophisticated and meticulous. She wanted Lucas and Amelia to suffer consequences they could never foresee. Emily aimed to ensure that not only their personal lives were disrupted, but also their standing in the community would be completely destroyed. She started by gathering more evidence of the illicit relationship between Lucas and Amelia. Their secret meetings were no longer just burned into Emily's memory but were now captured in photographs and videos she had a private investigator collect. Every encounter, every touch, every lingering gaze between the two was now in Emily's hands, like key pieces in her ultimate game of revenge. But Emily's plan went beyond simply exposing the truth. She knew that in order for Lucas and Amelia to truly feel pain, she needed to strike at what they valued most: their reputation and careers. Lucas, a successful real estate businessman, had built his career through personal connections and a well-crafted public image. Emily decided to use the evidence she had gathered to dismantle his reputation. First, she sent some of the photos and information to Lucas's major business partners, with an anonymous note suggesting they reconsider doing business with a man who was untrustworthy in both his personal and professional life. The explicit images of Lucas's affair with Amelia raised concerns among his partners. A few key business deals were cancelled immediately. Lucas couldn't understand why his major projects were suddenly falling apart, but Emily knew this was just the beginning of her plan. Amelia wasn't spared from Emily's wrath either. Once a powerful woman in the community, often attending charity events and social gatherings, Amelia was deeply invested in the admiration and respect she received from those around her. Emily knew that Amelia's reputation was her greatest treasure. So, she decided to spread rumors about the affair between Amelia and Lucas. The rumors quickly spread throughout the community, and soon people began to look at Amelia with disdain, ostracizing her from the social events she once dominated. One morning, as Emily sipped her coffee and read the newspaper, she saw a small article in the society section. It mentioned a scandalous affair between a prominent businessman and a well-known woman in the community. Although no names were mentioned, everyone knew the piece was about Lucas and Amelia. Emily smiled as she read, knowing that her plan was unfolding exactly as she had hoped. The tension between Lucas and Amelia began to surface. Lucas, after losing several major contracts, started to lash out at Amelia, blaming her for the mess they were in. Amelia, already feeling guilty about the affair, now found herself under immense pressure from all sides. The two, once united in their betrayal of Emily, were now turning against each other, and their relationship began to crack. But Emily didn't stop there. She prepared for the final blow. With all the documents and evidence she had gathered, Emily decided to make one last move. She hired a lawyer and filed for divorce, demanding a fair share of the assets and custody of their children, something Lucas had promised her years ago. This move would not only financially devastate Lucas but strip him of everything he had once held dear. When Lucas received the divorce papers, it hit him like a thunderbolt. He had already lost his reputation, his career was in jeopardy, and now even the family life he thought was secure was crumbling. Desperate, Lucas tried to reach out to Emily, begging her for forgiveness, but she remained silent. Emily knew Lucas didn't deserve forgiveness, and she wasn't about to give him the chance to make things right. After Emily's plan for revenge gradually came to fruition, she felt a sense of relief, as if she had finally shaken off the weight of the betrayal Lucas and Amelia had burdened her with. Yet, nothing could truly erase the scars they had left. Emily knew that while Lucas and Amelia had paid the price, she still needed time to heal. One day, Emily received an invitation to a major charity event in the community. It was one of the annual events Amelia used to organize, where she used to shine and be admired by everyone. Though Emily knew Amelia had been shunned and was no longer the center of attention, she decided to attend. She wanted to confront her past one last time, to face the people who had once been a significant part of her life, before she moved on. As Emily entered the party, all eyes immediately turned toward her. Her presence served as an unavoidable reminder of what had happened with Lucas and Amelia. The crowd murmured, but Emily didn't care. She walked through the room with confidence, exuding the calm and strength she had built over time. Lucas and Amelia were also at the event, but they were no longer the focus of attention. Amelia sat quietly in a corner, her face aged and weary. She no longer had the aura of a powerful woman in the community. Lucas stood nearby, his face showing the toll of losses. The shocks from his career, relationships, and family life had stripped him of the confident, successful man he once was. Emily walked toward Amelia, and for a moment, their eyes met. Amelia tried to muster a weak smile, but Emily only looked at her with a cold, indifferent gaze, offering no sympathy to the mother who had betrayed her. Emily didn't need to say anything, for her silence was enough to convey that there was nothing left between them. Lucas approached, his eyes filled with regret. He tried to say something, but Emily shook her head. "It's over," she said, her voice calm but firm. "You had your chance, and you destroyed everything." Lucas stood there, speechless, watching as Emily turned and walked away. It was the last time they would see each other in any public setting. For Emily, everything was clearer than ever, the past was over, and she no longer owed them anything. The party continued, but for Lucas and Amelia, it was suffocating. They had become mere shadows of their former selves, and the room's eyes avoided them while whispers never ceased. But for Emily, it was a moment of liberation. She felt an extraordinary sense of peace, as if everything that had happened was now just a faint memory. As the event ended, Emily stepped outside into the cool evening breeze. She paused for a moment, breathing in the fresh air, feeling the freedom and tranquility she had long been missing. What had happened to her over the past months was now just a part of her life story, a chapter that had ended, making way for a new one. Emily knew that there were still challenges ahead, but she no longer felt fear or helplessness. She had faced the worst and emerged strong. Her life might not be perfect, but she was ready to move forward, stronger and more confident than ever before. After the charity event, Emily felt as though she had severed all ties with the past. In the following days, she began reorganizing her life. Emily decided to leave the house she and Lucas had shared, a place filled with too many memories, both joyful and painful. She found a small, quiet apartment by the Malibu coast, a place where she could start fresh and rebuild her life with new beginnings. Standing by the ocean, watching the waves crash against the shore, Emily felt the peace she had long been searching for. The vast, deep blue sea seemed to symbolize her limitless future. The dreams she had buried for years now seemed to come alive once more. Emily began painting again, something she had abandoned when her life was overwhelmed by lies and betrayal. Her paintings now carried a new tone, full of depth and vitality, reflecting the strong and determined spirit she had rediscovered. One day, as Emily sat by the shore sketching new images from her mind, a man stopped to admire her work. Ryan, an art collector from Los Angeles, was instantly captivated by the subtlety and emotion in each of Emily's brush strokes. They began talking, initially about art, but gradually, Ryan became the unexpected companion Emily hadn't foreseen. He not only admired her talent but also sensed the strength and self-assurance that Emily radiated. Ryan wasn't like Lucas. He didn't come with flashy promises, nor did he hide behind masks. He was genuine, approachable, and knew how to listen. Emily felt comfortable around him, a feeling she hadn't experienced in years. Still, she wasn't in a rush. Emily knew she needed time to fully heal on her own before opening her heart to any new relationship. Meanwhile, Lucas and Amelia's lives continued to spiral into chaos. After losing his reputation and career, Lucas was forced to sell the old house to pay off his debts. His apologies and regrets couldn't change the situation, and Amelia had also lost her standing in the community. They had become shadows of their former selves, living in painful memories of what had been lost. No one in the community wanted to associate with them anymore, and the two were left to live in isolation, not just socially, but emotionally. During a chance encounter with Lucas on the street, Emily simply smiled when he tried to greet her. She no longer felt anger or hatred, only pity for him. Lucas had chosen the wrong path, and he was paying the heavy price for that choice. Emily no longer wished to look back, she only wanted to move forward. As time passed, Emily felt freer than ever before. She was no longer burdened by the weight of betrayal or old ties. Instead, she focused on self-improvement and finding joy in the simplest things in life. She had learned that no one could truly hurt her unless she allowed it. One sunny afternoon, Emily received an invitation from a major art gallery in Los Angeles to hold a solo exhibition for her new works. This touched Emily deeply, as it marked a significant milestone in the career she had abandoned when she married Lucas. But now, she realized that her life and career were never meant to be defined by someone else. She had the right to choose her own path, and it was time for her to step onto the stage not as a wife or a betrayed woman, but as an independent and powerful artist. Emily stepped into the art gallery in Los Angeles that evening, her heart brimming with emotion. This was her first solo exhibition in years, and it wasn't just an art event, it was a symbol of her rebirth, a woman who had risen from pain, betrayal, and rediscovered herself. The gallery was crowded with art lovers, new friends, and a few people who had known Emily from before. People marveled at her work, paintings filled with emotion and depth, skillfully telling the story of her life through brush strokes. Each painting was not just a work of art, but a fragment of Emily's journey back to herself. She smiled as she saw visitors pause, deeply observing and discussing her pieces, knowing she had truly succeeded not just as an artist, but as a person. Ryan, Emily's new companion, stood by her side at the exhibition. He wasn't just supporting her career but had become her confidant, bringing the peace she had long yearned for. There was no rush, no pressure, only understanding and a deep connection. Ryan had helped Emily realize that life wasn't only full of pain and hurt, but could also offer moments of serenity and hope if one was willing to embrace them. After the exhibition's resounding success, Emily stepped outside the gallery, feeling the cool night air wrap around her. She looked up at the sky, where the stars twinkled, reminding her that life goes on, no matter the losses or sorrows. Lucas and Amelia had now become mere shadows in Emily's life. In the end, they were left behind, condemned to live in the loneliness they had created for themselves. Lucas, having lost everything, his career, reputation, and those who once loved him, now lived as a broken man, with nothing but regret. Amelia, once strong and powerful, now lived quietly in her old house, hidden from the eyes of the community. Her days were now filled with guilt and a sense of irreparable loss. Emily had forgiven, but not Lucas or Amelia. She had forgiven herself. She realized that in order to live a full and meaningful life, she had to let go of the past. Not because those who hurt her deserved forgiveness, but because she deserved peace. She had reclaimed her life, and the past no longer held her heart captive. With her success in art and peace of mind, Emily felt she was finally ready for whatever the future held. Nothing could break her now because she had learned how to overcome it all and grow stronger from her healed wounds. Emily's story isn't just one of revenge or loss, but a journey of self-discovery, resilience, and the unveiling of her inner strength. This is an ending, but also a new beginning, a chapter filled with hope and liberation. Thank you for staying with us until the end of the video. If you were captivated by this true crime story and want to see more thrilling cases, please hit the like button to support us. Don't forget to share this video with those who also love true crime and leave a comment below with your thoughts on the case. Make sure to subscribe to the Dark Crime Mysteries channel and turn on notifications to stay updated with the latest gripping crime stories that you won't want to miss. Thank you for your support.